Welcome back to War Seats in the House. Michael Russo, Anthony LaPanta, coming to you from an incredible setting here in Lisbon, Portugal. Coming to you from a topless pool.
I think it's the best setting we've ever had. I'm glad our guests are not topless.
Yeah, I was a little worried. We walked in here and I was a little stunned. And it's not stuff that we usually see in the United States. But
no, but the setting is perfect. We're poolside at our hotel in Lisbon. It's awesome. It's been an incredible week so far, and with another great group of Wild fans. It's been fun to get to know some new guests this year and see some old friends.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll invite you guys up later in the show to ask some Wild questions. Hopefully, Ken, you got some good ones lined up for us, I'm sure. But what's been your favorite part of the trip so far, besides the wine?
The wine's been my favorite part, and we talked about.
No offense, Michael Kenny.
Yeah, Michael's done a nice job.
You've done, as long as you feed Anthony wine, he'll be happy.
That's been good. We talked on last week's show about 6 weeks prior. I started diving into Portuguese wine and was surprised how good it was, how much variety there was to it. And once we've gotten here, it's been even better than I expected. We got lucky then because I'm sure it was Michael Kenny's plan, but our guide just happens to be like a level 4 sommelier, which is the greatest thing that's ever happened to one of our defined destinations trips together. And Miguel's going to join us shortly to talk about this, but that's been great. I've loved the wine. The food's been good, and Porto was beautiful. It was something I didn't know anything about Porto, but it was an unbelievable
Yeah, Porto
time.
And our incredible hotel. We've had 3 really good hotels on this trip, especially the resort that we were out in the middle of nowhere there. After we went to Nazaré, which has the biggest waves in the world, except when we were there. It was a low tide. Everybody's like, oh, you should have been here yesterday. But not this time. But it was just a beautiful city. My favorite part of the trip was sitting yesterday. And was it yesterday or a couple days ago, we were talking about hangovers and how nobody gets hangovers drinking the wine here, according to Margot, because the wine is so perfect here. And you're like, well, I don't get, that's just irrelevant to me. I don't get hangovers.
Context stuff here.
Yeah.
What was said was that when we were in Tuscany, they told us that the Italian language has 9 words for love and 0 words for hangovers, because nobody gets hangovers drinking Italian wine. So Margot's philosophy was that when you're in Europe, it must be the wine that's different than what you drink at home, because she's had a few debilitating hangovers at home, but I don't want to make this sound like she's been hungover like every day. She kept asking Miguel, like, there's got to be something different. It's like she's hungover every day. I said, Margot, you get hangovers like once a month. It's not like this happens every day. I think Miguel was worried, thought we had to have an intervention or something, because we sent him into doing like heavy research into what they put in the wine before they ship it to America. And Miguel said, there's nothing. So he's given her a lot of ideas about water and food intake while drinking wine.
I think it more has to do with the amount of wine that you guys drink at home compared to here, where you're tempering yourself.
Right, because we never drink much when we're here. That's been the problem with this trip, is not enough wine.
But Anthony, as Margot's asking these questions to our level 4 sommelier, Miguel, all of a sudden Anthony just tries to say, well, hangovers are irrelevant to me. I don't get them.
I don't get hangovers.
Yeah, I know. You're the best.
It's not the best. It's just lucky.
Yeah. You're just perfect at everything. Your body just defies odds of alcohol, and
it's good fortune. You've been with me enough times on the road to know that there are nights when we've been walking home where you've said there's no way he's going to be able to do the game tomorrow, and then it's been fine.
Yeah, that's true. You are usually I could tell. I would say that we know the way you look when you've had.
I agree. I may not look my best.
So there we go.
And I've called some games with mush brain. I'll agree with that. But to me, hangovers are like when you have a headache, you can't get out of bed, the sunlight's bothering you. I don't get those.
Yeah. This is exactly what Margot didn't want us to do on this podcast.
Is she here yet?
She's over it.
Yeah. She said, on to page 2. Sorry, I thought we could get that in before Margot got up here.
No, she's here. But it's been awesome. We saw a group of, did we figure out where they were from, the Yellow Hat people?
They were not from our tour.
Right. That was one thing. So we were on a river cruise the other day, and we were outnumbered by a bunch of people in yellow hats, and they definitely didn't have, spatial awareness.
Had no spatial awareness.
Yeah.
They had no problem banging into your chair and just not even acknowledging it. But it really made us disappointed. We've done 6 of these tours now. We've never once had matching hats. I don't know what, like, our tour guide's doing. All it takes is get a hat for everybody, and then we know where we're going. We'd have nobody wander down the bridge the wrong way. We'd have to get a taller hat so everybody could see Ken, but we could come up with some hats.
Poor Ken. Well, let's introduce Miguel. Miguel is our incredible Portugal tour guide. How long have you been doing this?
17 years.
17 years. Have you ever had a group like this?
No. And go wild.
Yeah.
Now, you asked a great question before. So we gave you a wild hat. Somebody was gifted by the Lindgrens. Who gave up? Hod gifted you a hat. And then before you asked me, is it the Wild or the Wilds?
The Wilds,
which is
correct.
honestly an incredible question.
Okay.
That is, I think, a lot of it's to the chagrin of a lot of Wild fans because there are some people that still don't love the nickname of the Minnesota Wild. And so what happened is in the early 90s, the first Minnesota NHL team went to Dallas. They were the North Stars. We went without hockey for 8 years, and all of a sudden the Wild came, and still to this day, everybody, or half the people in Minnesota want like the Wild to basically retain everything about the North Stars, their colors and all that stuff. Don't love the singular name, don't love the logo, all that stuff. Want them to rebrand. So I think it was a great question by you.
Thank you.
So-
Where's the North Star on the logo?
Yeah, well,
Because it's at the bear head.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a mythical figure. It's not really a bear. It might look like a bear, but
Okay.
it's not. It's a mythical figure.
All right.
So you've never had a group like this?
No, ever.
Is that a good thing or a bad
It's a
thing?
great thing.
Okay.
I mean, you love wine, I love wine, so it's a match made in heaven.
Hey, I've got a question. So yesterday when we were at the winery, right before the guy was going to pour us the wine, he said that it wasn't filtered.
Yes.
What? I've never heard that before. What does that mean?
Most wines are filtered. So
filtered.
yes, so wine is made from grape. And grapes are not just liquids. You know, they have peels, you have peels and seeds and everything else. And you don't want those solids in the wine usually. People are put off by solids in wine. You know, you have crystals that may look like shattered glass. They're tartrates. They're okay for you, but people look at it and think, is this off? So people, wineries filter most of the wine on
Okay.
purpose.
And yesterday was not filtered.
Correct.
Okay. Is
Yeah.
that good or bad?
It's great.
Okay.
If it's done properly, that means that it'll add a layer of complexity to the wine.
Okay.
And because it's not filtered, it passes the image that they don't temper with the wine. You know what I mean?
So has Portuguese wine, has it sort of evolved over the years where now it's becoming bigger and bigger? Because as Anthony said, you know, usually, Anthony's snooty as it is, and it will only drink Italian reds and things like that.
Now
but-
I'm into Portuguese
Yeah,
reds.
exactly. So I mean, has it suddenly started to get bigger in the United States and places like that?
Yes, we've come a long way. We're right now, depending on where you go to for information, number 9 or 10 in wine production worldwide. Okay, but we're also number 1 in wine consumption per capita. So most of what we produce, we drink
So
at
we've
home.
just been trying to fit in with the Portuguese.
There you go.
Got to make sure with it when in Rome, so when in Lisbon.
Exactly. That's the spirit. But so the thing is that we consume most of our wine, so there's not much left to be exported. Okay. Also, the huge chains in the U.S. they would easily buy all of our wine quantity wise, so that would leave us with no wine. That's why most producers in Portugal don't really export that much. It's domestic market first, and then we go outside.
Right.
But it's changing.
Which again, the winery we went to yesterday, they started the opposite. They started exporting and then sort of became local.
Yeah, the guy who we met, Manuel, my friend, is a winemaker, but before he was also a businessman. And he studied hotel management. So he knows all about managing and about looking ahead. So he thought, I want to produce great wine at great value, and I know that's got to go out to the export market.
What's the name of the winery?
The winery is Val de Capucha.
Okay.
That's
Maybe spell that for everybody.
Valley, Vale, and then Capucha is Capucha.
Okay.
The other thing that's been interesting is that no place in any of these cities, well, I shouldn't say no place, but very few have had any wines that are from outside of Portugal.
Correct.
Almost all the restaurants serve only Portuguese wine.
And you'll find wine only from the region where you're in. Like in Porto, you find lots of port wine, which everyone loved.
Everybody loved. Yeah.
We produce lots of fortified wine, apart from Porto, Madeira wine, for example, and Muscatel. But in Porto, you don't find Madeira wine. You go to Madeira, the island that's an hour flight west of here, you don't find port wine. You come to Lisbon, you don't find Douro wine, you find Lisbon wine. So each region is sectorized, so to speak.
So you talked about all the different groups you have. How is, like, this group? These are people we've traveled with a lot. How is this group different from the other groups you've hosted?
Okay, so the smiles. And you all know each other, even those who are maybe not friends from a long time ago, you all get along really well, and you respect boundaries, you respect yourselves. As in, you can, one can go, east, that can go west, and that's okay. And then you share information, you share your experiences, and that's what makes traveling so interesting. Because when you're on your own, you travel, it's great, but you have no one to share it with. But as a group, like you do, you explore so much more than if everyone was doing the same thing. So that's a great thing.
One of the things that I loved being in Lisbon is finding a Starbucks, because the one thing I've noticed in your incredible country is nobody walks around with a coffee cup in your country. You need to go to Starbucks to be able to get a coffee to go. Nobody even has to-go cups. What is the reason for that? Because as Americans, we're almost used to, you almost never see somebody just sitting at a coffee shop drinking. You always see them just walking with their head down on their phone, their other hand holding their Starbucks cup.
What is Starbucks?
Yeah.
No, honestly, 10 years ago, no one knew what Starbucks was, And for us, coffee is mainly espresso. And, if you're not in a hurry, you'll have that very tiny cup in front of you for an hour, and you just zip it. If you're in a rush, you just, chug it down. But it's always an espresso. So for us, it doesn't make sense, having to walk with something hot. Maybe you'll spill it, maybe you're not. It doesn't make any sense in our brains.
I like it this way. I prefer it. I prefer to sip on the espresso or drink it fast, whatever, but I like it so much better. I love the culture. We've seen that in other European countries too, but one of the things that, we've had a blast with having you with us this whole week. I love learning the little things about every city we visit, about the countries we visit, the history. I was fascinated today by our tour of Lisbon and how recently this became a free country. I don't think very many people realize that it was only 50 years ago that this was still a dictatorship.
And the longest lasting dictatorship in Europe in the 20th century, which is impressive. Yeah, definitely.
And the story was amazing to me. Your father was there.
My father was there, yeah. Yeah, he was one of the rascals who said, no, I'm staying home. I want to see what's happening.
And the other thing we learned today is that you still have an active communist party here, including in your own city.
So where I live, we have hundreds of municipalities, and where I live, in south of the River Tagus, a lot of them are people still vote for the PCP, the Portuguese Communist Party, for mayors, definitely. Yeah.
So the other thing we learned on this trip is you actually made a trip to America for the first time.
Correct.
That was last year.
Actually, I got married 4 months ago.
4 months ago.
It was March 16. Yes.
So did you have a guide when you were in?
Oh, no.
No. We got a whole bunch of people here who'd be happy to guide you.
I know. I had 2 full days, and it's not enough. Not enough, I know.
Where did you honeymoon?
So it was New York for 2 days, and then we went to Mexico, to the Mayan Riviera.
Oh, very cool.
You should have come to St. Paul, and we could have given you. Now, next time, come to St. Paul. We'll have people who will host you, guide you, feed you, whatever you need.
Is there wine?
There's wine.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
And we'll get you to a Minnesota Wild game, which is the most important thing. Yeah.
We were able to watch while we were here, which has usually been I think it's been a couple times we've been here during big soccer tournaments, football tournaments. This one was the Euro. So we got to watch. Unfortunately, the wrong team came out on top for you.
That was okay. They were the best team throughout the whole championship. So it breaks my heart, but they deserved it.
Yeah, we've learned that they don't exactly love Spain and Portugal, especially our tour guide Miguel. Can't even say them without choking. But that was it was an unbelievable game. I mean, England ties it up. Spain scores with about 4 minutes left before extra time, and then
some defenseman made this unbelievable header play. It was the greatest soccer play I've ever seen live.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. Any final thoughts for the trip here? I mean, you got to be just proud. That is the one thing doing the walking tour today. It's so clear that you're proud of your hometown.
I really am, and I'm happy to have people around. Just show them around, and them having a good time. For me, that's all the pay I need. You know, honestly. Yeah.
Well, we were joking with Michael Kenny today that now this might have had to do with a lot of the wine that we consumed in Tuscany, but our last day in Tuscany, we had a hired guide once in Siena, and not and I think literally one person walked around with her the entire time. And today you had an optional walking tour around your city, and about 30 people showed up. So that just shows you that how much that we're still, one, enjoying your company, but two, this awesome city of yours. So thanks so much, Miguel.
How great has Miguel been for you guys? It's been great.
Yep, that is Miguel.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Ask him where he met his wife.
Yeah.
You gotta ask him for this group.
I know the answer to this story already, and it could well be a historic spot.
I mean, the world is small. It's a small world, I mean. So last year you went to Sicily,
yeah.
and in Catania you were at the hotel.
Yes.
That's the Ramona house. That's where I met my current
Right.
wife. She was working there at a reception. I spent the whole summer there with groups, escorting Portuguese groups. That's where we met for the first time. And it was July 27th.
Wow.
Ramona House. That very same
That's
place.
unbelievable. That was the place where our bus driver left his phone.
And she was working in the hotel, right?
Yeah, not down the street. Yeah.
Just had to confirm that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, thanks, Miguel.
Thanks, Miguel.
That is it was a great hotel, Michael.
Yeah,
it was a
it
great
was.
hotel.
We should mention one of our guests just dumped like a pitcher full of alcohol and ice cubes all over the deck. I'll give you one guess who it was.
It had to be Dawn or her daughter.
Yeah.
Who was it? Which one?
It was both of them. Yeah.
Let's talk about the river cruise again. The one thing I loved about that with the lock dams, like I've seen them obviously in Minneapolis 1,000 times. I've never been in two. That was pretty cool to be in a lock dam as it was rising to the
I
top.
thought you said lockdown. I was like,
Lockdown.
did you get in trouble on the ship or something?
No.
Oh, yeah. The first one, I think they were surprised we arrived because we sat there for a long time. But yeah, the locks were cool. I'm not a big lock and dam expert. But
Yeah, no, but it was pretty sweet. I mean, you realize
you were locked down downstairs?
Yeah, I was locked down yesterday. But it is like sometimes you do stuff like that and you realize like how much of our life we really rely on a really smart engineer to do the math right. Like it just feels like everything we do. You get in an elevator, you drive a car, you like you are locked in that dam, just hoping everything goes perfect as you're just rising to the next level of water. It's pretty cool. It's a shame Brian Dahl's not here. Where is he? I got so much material on him this trip.
Yeah. Well, he's only smashed into one
Actually,
window
I know where
and
he
one
is.
low ceiling.
I know where he is. He just sent
He's
me
not the only one, though, that's hit a low ceiling on this trip.
Who was that?
Mark, I believe, banged his head on.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
We had two guys bang into each other at a urinal. That's a story maybe we could leave outside. But
actually, I know exactly where Brian is. He goes, question for the podcast. What is the name of our hotel?
Yeah.
Karen's been overserved. So apparently,
we should have the buddy system this year. Here we are at a podcast. We have 44 guests. We should have 46, but 2 are lost.
Yeah. The other cool thing about the city, we went to the first ever, and I'm sorry, Miguel, if I'm forgetting the name, first ever capital of Portugal yesterday. Was that yesterday too? Or 2 days ago? Yeah, that was pretty cool. Showing up there, and we had the band play for us, which we call Tune Up, yep. And Brian Dahl wants to adopt them and bring them to the United States and produce their music and all that stuff. So that would have been fun.
That was fun to see. All the little stops along the way are the things that are my favorite on all these trips. The little vineyard we stopped in, the little town we stopped in yesterday, Alcoa, I believe it was called, if I'm saying that right, with the Alcoa, which was a cool little town. Those are the stops that I enjoy the most on these trips, and always find something special, something unique in those little towns.
My favorite thing is when Margot buys something and it takes time how long it's going to take you for to notice. And the other day, it was earrings. She was even modeling it for you. She was like, I noticed it before
I
you.
might have missed it. We actually went to a place last night, and the waitress noticed it in like 8 seconds, which made me feel worse again because I didn't notice that was the second set of earrings I had missed on the trip. And today, apparently, there was a third set. So, all right, so I'm 0 for 3.
Yeah, you're buying a lot of earrings. Summer temps are rising, But at Aquarius, it's time for their summer meltdown of savings. Get up to $3,000 off a new high-efficiency cooling and heating system. Plus, with a qualifying purchase, you'll get a free whole home air purification system. Stay cool and comfy with amazing air quality for years to come. It all starts with a free in-home consultation. One of their highly trained comfort specialists will provide options that make sense for you and your home. And that's not all. Enjoy special prices on new heat pumps and mini splits and 50% off an AC tune-up. Don't miss Aquarius's Meltdown of Savings sale now through July. Schedule today at AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius believes in earning the right to be recommended, and don't forget to mention that Russo sent you.
Get a great return on your investment with a Royal Credit Union certificate. Choose a 5.05% annual percentage yield 13-month certificate or a 4.75% annual percentage yield 18-month certificate. Royal certificates have no minimum opening balance and a locked-in rate for guaranteed earnings. Open a certificate at any Royal office or online at rcu.org/certificate saver. Early withdrawal penalties could reduce earnings and principal. APY accurate as of 7/16/24. Insured by NCUA.
Yeah, you're buying a lot of earrings. All right, let's talk about the Wild. And feel free. You don't have to be invited. Feel free to just come on up and ask questions about the Wild. Luckily, for my sake, there hasn't been really any news while we were here, other than Sammy Walker re-signing a one-year deal. But there's really nothing going on with the team right now. Obviously, very little cap space to do anything. I'm still, sort of on guard that maybe at some point they could trade Philip Gustafson, free up some cap space, and then try to maybe get a Patrick Laine or somebody like that. The biggest news going on that revolves the Wild right now is Dean Evason sounds like he's one of two candidates left in the Columbus Blue Jackets job with Jay Woodcroft. And a lot of jokes on Twitter about if maybe a little sweetener, maybe get like $1 million off his salary and you take Freddie Gaudreau. A lot of Wild fans are asking that. But in all honesty, that actually could be a thing. I mean, not the we'll make a deal with you on his salary, on Dean's salary, because the way it works is the Wild owe him another $2 million, and then Columbus decides what they want to pay him, and then they have to work out a deal where the Wild are like, yeah, that's okay. You pay him $1.5 million, we'll pay him the rest of the $750 or something like that. But in truly, like if there's any team that right now you might be able to trade Freddie Gaudreau to, it would be a team that Dean Evason gets to. And one thing that Columbus has made quite clear that they wanted to do in free agency is to get another bottom six forward. And so if I was Billy Guerin and assuming he would want to get out of the final 4 years of that deal, I would actually say to talk to have conversations with Don Waddell and see if that's a possibility.
Yeah, maybe. I'd say first let's see if Dean gets the job, which I hope he does. I've chatted with him a little bit, and I know he had some opportunities to be an associate head coach in some other spots and wanted to wait and see if a head coaching job popped up first. And I think he'd be a great fit in Columbus with the way that organization is headed right now. They've got some young talent. I think he'd be a perfect fit there.
And for an organization that doesn't win, there's nobody that likes winning more than him. I mean, we've seen it, how fiery he gets. I do think they need that type of attitude behind that bench. I think it would be a huge get for them, and well earned by Dean, because I mean, it just feels like for the number of job openings that were available this summer, it's shocking that he hasn't gotten.
Yeah, and there were a few that didn't seem like
the right fit
for him, but there were a couple that I thought
Ottawa, Seattle.
Would be a good spot. And Columbus might be as good as any of those, but those were two that I really thought he might be a landing spot.
And you and I both agree he can coach. Unfortunately for him, he can't take Bob Woods with him right now. He's going to Seattle to go coach there. There just comes a point where, from Bob's point of view, he had to take a job and not sit around any longer. But if he gets a job there, I think it's a really good thing. And the other cool thing is the Wild play them opening night, then play them their third road game.
I think
twice in the first 5
games. Yeah.
So that'll be fun for us, especially because we have an off night there. Maybe we can get together with him. Let's hope he gets the job.
I hope he does.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, who has some Wild questions? Come on up. We have 40 people here. Counselor?
How many people are surprised that Ken has the first question on the show?
And it won't surprise you that I don't have to worry about hitting high ceilings.
That's true. That's true.
By the way, let me just tell one story. So Simon, who is by far our loudest member.
Wait, have any of you guys met Simon?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard. Simon is on this trip this year.
Yeah. So anyway, I run into his wife in the elevator now about 15 minutes ago, and I'm like, his Mrs. Patty, and I said, "Oh, I just ran into Simon at the pool," and just a random guy in the elevator goes, "Oh, Simon, I just met him at the pool. He was talking to me, And then Patty just looks at me and goes, "Welcome to my life." So just a random Portuguese guy in the elevator, just like, "Yeah, I was just talking to Simon at the pool." So all right,
before I ask my question, based on today's performance, Margot, if you need a divorce lawyer, I can give you a good recommendation. Actually, this is not exactly wild, but it's hockey related. So I would like to know on 3 different categories: favorite and least favorite, national play-by-play hockey broadcasters, national color analyst broadcasters, and national in-studio commentators.
I don't know if I really want to do least favorite because I'm friends with all these guys. Because I am friends with, I mean, there are some people that I will be honest, it's not my cup of tea, and I'm really good friends with them. But in terms of favorite, national play-by-play, I mean, I'm really good friends with Kenny Albert, and I do think that he's just a polished pro. But probably Chris Cuthbert's, I think he's just outstanding. Color analyst, probably Ray Ferraro. And in studio, I mean, Elliot Friedman, but he's more of an insider. So I think he's tremendous on TV. Kevin BX is a rising star, and then I think Paul Bissonnette's outstanding.
I have loved Henrik Lundqvist on the. I think he's been a great addition to the TNT crew, and has brought a lot of the credibility that they had that they lost. I think, when early, I thought their shows have gotten a lot better. I think Liam McHugh is really good as the host of that show, and I think he does a great job teeing these guys up. But I think since Lundqvist has joined them, he's been terrific. I listen to a lot more of the local shows, and I prefer a lot of the local broadcasters just because maybe it's because I relate a little bit more to what those guys deal with on a daily basis, but there's some really good ones out there that call the games on a local level. And I like a lot of the Canadian play-by-play guys. I think the guys in Calgary are really good. The guys in Montreal are terrific. And I think one of the more underrated local analysts is Jody Shelley in Columbus.
Yeah.
I think he does a great job. But I kind of, the Dallas show, I think is one of the better local shows in the league. And I just think those guys are the guys they're kind of in the grind every night, where the national guys drop in for one game. They tell very surface level generic stories a lot of times about a team, because then they're on to another city the next day. So it's a totally different line of work for them than it is to be
like you could actually tell. I mean, maybe I can tell more because of just my job, but you could tell that their level of prep a lot of times are reading a couple features the day before in some of the newspapers and the Athletic. And if you're watching a Wild game, almost every story that you're hearing about the Wild is something that they've read in our outlet or something like that in the days leading up to it. So that's just something that's it's just the nature of their business, because they have to do just such quick prep, especially during the playoffs. I mean, just imagine these, men and women that are calling games during the playoffs are calling a game a night. I mean, flying, they'll be here, then here, and here, and here. So they are just not getting the level of prep so they have to almost cram like I used to do in high school, Mom. So I mean, that's just the way it is. But I agree. I think Henrik Lundqvist has been incredible. I think Paul Bissonnette is just what he's done he's turned himself into the biggest thing right now in hockey. And then in terms of insiders, I mean, the guys on TSN, Chris Johnson and obviously Pierre LeBrun, Darren Dreger, those guys are as good as it gets from breaking news stories. And then obviously Elliot's second to none really in the business. I mean,
but all those guys bring different things. So to me, I have less interest in the insiders that come on here and are telling you about who's going to get traded, who's going to get signed. That stuff doesn't really, I like the guys who break down the game. And for that, Rick Tocchet was terrific. But then when he left, they needed somebody that brought just that, not the shtick of and I think Bissonnette's more than shtick, but he's got a lot of that in him. But a lot of those other guys, like, I just, that's not my line of work.
Yeah.
That's more, you relate more to those guys because you're trying to stay ahead of it and be the first to know. And that's what they do. That's what LeBron and the guys that you're talking about, those guys, to me, I find a lot. Like, I don't watch the shows to learn that. Mm-hmm. I watch the shows because I want to see the highlights of the games and hear from the coaches or hear from the guys who can break it down and tell me here's what's going on in the game.
Yeah. The evolution of Bissonnette, though, has really been fascinating because at first he was sort of the class clown on TNT. And then, but the one thing that you could tell when you listen to him now is he really knows the game. And that was the one thing that, when I was working on a feature on Liam McHugh last year, I talked to everybody on the panel from Bissonnette to Rick Tocchet and to Anson Carter. And the one thing about that all of them really told me that Rick Tocchet really impressed upon me is how much that Paul Bissonnette knows and how he impressed upon Paul Bissonnette to not be the class clown anymore, to show everybody how much you know of the sport, because they would eventually tune him out and not take him seriously. And now, I mean, I think he breaks things down as good as anybody. So yeah, good question. I don't mean to avoid the least favorite, but it's just not. Right. Sometimes you just got to be. Trust me, there's a lot of people that would say Anthony and me, especially Anthony.
Yeah.
So
more than a few.
Yeah. So question, Hod, you have a question? Yes, actually, I would. Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much. Sangria.
We'll see if she can pour this without spilling. It's going to be impressive. Yeah.
Hey.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Hod.
Hey.
Talking to Mike.
Good to see you again. Third year in a row.
It's been great.
Trip,
yep.
you guys. Michael Kenny commercial insert here. Very fun trip. Love it.
Fourth trip is free.
All right.
Yeah.
I have to.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry, it was the sixth trip.
All right, sixth trip.
If you notice this tall, rather angry gentleman approaching the studio here.
Brian has already shown up. Brian, you've already been a comic.
Only one of us got sangria? Don got distracted. She asked if we wanted sangria, poured one, and walked away.
So it's my third trip. I've heard all these Brian stories even before the trip, and I've never seen them, but now I have lived it. We were on this famous boat cruise. What day was that? A couple days worth?
A couple days ago.
That was I loved it.
The good thing about that river cruise is that none of us ever have to actually go on a river cruise because we've experienced it.
That's right. Douro River, I loved it. Anyway, so I at some point needed to go to the restroom, and on a boat, a restroom is, kind of narrow, and they had two urinals kind of set off to the side.
We're kind of heading down a strange path right now on the podcast.
It's a very narrow corridor to these two urinals, and I was at the first one, and this big gentleman named Brian was at the inside one, or I guess the outside one, and as he was finishing up and getting ready to pass me, I said, please don't touch me.
Which is a general rule we live by on these trips.
Well, yes. Well, all of a sudden I was rear-ended belly first into my urinal as Brian, crossing me, he's 6'8", hits the beam over the doorway out leaving the urinals, and he really hurt himself as he careened into me. I'm so glad I got to tell this story before Brian got here.
Yeah, he's here shaking his head. He's about to smash his head on a bar roof. But, Margot, right now I just want to say that we've crossed the line into nothing that I've said should make you upset after we're now telling stories about running into each other in urinals.
I just have it's not really a wild question, but Michael and I have been debating this a little bit about our wild, and I truly believe that last year was an aberration, and that 2 years ago we were a 100-plus team, and I just think we're better. And I think, if we stay the course, I think we have a better team than 2 years ago. for a lot of reasons. Just to wait a second, Michael, before you steal the mic from me. I think you are accurate about some of your things about the flexibility issues. But I think Billy G, as we call him, loves the team he has and is happy to pay today prices for those players that would cost more tomorrow.
But tomorrow they're going to be 35, 36, 37. I mean, that's my only point is that here's the point. I just think that 4 years ago when they made these decisions to buy them out, they didn't have a real plan of what they plan to do these next 4 years. And what they should have done is gotten younger and always used the 4 years as an end game to go out and spend money and spend money and spend money. And it feels like that was the plan because that's every indication that they gave us. Now they're signing Jake Middleton, Marcus Foligno, Ryan Hartman, Yakov Trenin, Freddie Goudreau. I don't know why I keep on calling him Philip. To all these 4 and 5 year deals, and so now they hit on Brock Faber. They never expected that would be an $8-9 million player. And he's gonna be. They got to re-sign Kaprizov. They always knew that was going to be at the end of the buyouts, and so they had this incredible opportunity next summer to go out and I'm just using the name. Go and get a Leon Draisaitl. Go and get whoever. And now they can't anymore. And I know that he keeps on saying, "Oh, we still have flexibility. We still have flexibility." They really do not. They do not have the ability to go out and spend a fortune on a player now. And that's what I just don't get. Is I just see conflicting plan here of what they always intended to do. And so that's my only issue is that they've decided to invest their money on their third and fourth liners, and so now they better hope that these young kids, the Yurovs, the Ogrins,
our first and second.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But I think that changed the plan a little bit. The other thing is, as you mentioned, Brock Faber's name. If you didn't have Brock Faber as a $9 million player or $8 million player, you'd need to spend some money on another defenseman. So that is where they spent their money. And then Boldy turned out to be, it looks like, to be the player they hoped he was going to be. I'm more on the agreement with Hod. I think this team is a lot more like the team that had 100 points the two seasons in a row prior to this. Last year, I think, was an aberration, but the only caveat I would add to that is goaltending's the deal. If Philip Gustafsson plays like Gustafsson did at the end of the previous season, this is a playoff team. If he plays like he did last year, this is a non-playoff team.
And they need Spurgeon to be back and be Spurgeon.
Yeah, there's other things too, but but it really comes down to, even last year, as we talked before, and I'm a big analytics guy. They went and studied the expected goals for and against in every game all season, and if the Wild had the goaltending that was middle of the pack, 100% just along the league expectations line, they were over 100 points last year, and that was with all the injuries. The rest of the team played at a pace of 104 points. They got goaltending that prohibited them from making the playoffs.
Here's the engineer that I said needs to do all of the math right.
Right. I want to stick with the urinal theme. What about the urinals in Porto? Where you could have a conference around the urinals.
Oh, at the public place.
Yes.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. Yeah, we could have had a trip meeting there.
Yeah, we could have. Yeah,
could have had a podcast in there. Although only the men could have come in.
Yeah. Yep. No, mine's around coaching. Really, kind of a two-part question. You saw St. Louis. Was it 4 years ago? Switch coaches. They were last in the league. They won it last year. Edmonton switched it. They made it to the finals. How can a coaching change do so much to change a team? It helped with the Wild. I got the second half. It helped with the Wild, but, injuries, it didn't bring them to the finals. Didn't bring them to the playoffs. The second one is, what can we expect out of John Hines this year, coaching from the beginning? And how will that change the team? Faster start, better power play. What do you guys think?
I think the second one's the interesting one for me to watch, because anytime you have a chance to implement your systems, your philosophy, your style all the way through the summer, everything from the preparation to training camp to exhibition, I think that's where you truly judge a coach's value. coming in the middle, there's a spark, and guys sometimes just get a little bit of an eye opener where, hey, we like this guy, and we just got him fired because we played poorly, and that injects a little life into a room, and sometimes it is just it's a wake up call. But I think when you really assess a coach coming in the middle, it's hard to implement. John didn't change much from what Dean was doing. He really didn't. There was the little spark at the beginning, and then the team kind of played the same way they had played all season down the stretch and wound up short of the playoffs. This year will be the year to judge him, because now he's got a chance to, if you want to change the penalty kill, now you got a chance to do it, whether it be how you teach it, how you implement it, who you use. All of those things are now at his disposal, and I think it's his responsibility. So I think it'll be interesting to see how the team looks different this year. I don't think last year what we saw at the end of the season is a real fair assessment of what he's like as a head coach.
And they really did when, at the end of that spark at the end of December, I mean, they got hurt at the World Sports Time, home and home against Winnipeg, home and home against Dallas, and they lost like everybody in their lineup. A question from a Vinny LaPanta, but I think he might be trolling. Okay. Wants to know, is it possible to win with Connor McDavid?
Well,
hey everyone, Attorney Jerry Bosch here with Bosch Law Firm and WorkCompExperts.com. For almost 30 years, we've represented Minnesotans just like you all over the great state of Minnesota to guarantee they've been treated fairly and with respect when they've suffered a work-related injury. A work injury can change your life in an instant. You need someone on your side who can help you focus on getting back on your feet and getting paid while you do. You may be entitled to medical benefits, wage loss benefits, job placement, retraining, and payment for permanent disability. To make sure you are being paid all the work comp benefits you're entitled to, please call the attorneys at Bosch Law Firm. The call is always free, and there's never a fee unless we recover benefits on your behalf. Call 651-333-8300, Bosch Law Firm, or visit us at WorkCompExperts.com.
Anthony, tell us about Feller's Ranch.
Well, I'm excited. As we've talked over the last couple of weeks, Feller's Ranch has joined our show as one of our newest sponsors. I'm thrilled about that because of the quality of their steaks is second to none. They're the best steaks I've had. We had Vinny on. He talked about the spinalis cuts that we had tried. We've had their Denver cuts, which are unbelievable. Their ribeyes are terrific. We just had those at Ariana's graduation weekend. But right now, they just have announced that you'll be able to get their brisket at a place down in the southwestern suburbs, Northern Fire Barbecue. It's a cool spot. They've got an unbelievable selection of spices. And I know that the Fellers guys are really excited to have their Wagyu brisket available there. So if you're interested in brisket, you can check it out there. But as always, if you want their steaks delivered directly to your house, just go to fellersranch.com. Their vans are in the cities every week. They'll get it right to your front door. It couldn't be much easier, and you will not be disappointed in their cuts of steak.
There are a lot of options to buy glasses out there. If you've been disappointed by high prices or poor online quality, check out our friends at Huxley Optical. I like Huxley for two reasons. First is the price. Simply put, I don't want to spend $800 on glasses. At Huxley, I know I'll get the same quality for half the price. They're a small independent business that is here to help you find glasses you love and save you money. Second is the service. They have options catered to what I need, and I know someone will be happy to help me find glasses. Whether it's a lens replacement, office glasses, or a brand new pair, they're always ready to help. Check out HuxleyEyewear.com. Again, that's HuxleyEyewear.com today, or go to their locations in Wayzata or Roseville. Tell them Russo sent you for 10% off your prescription purchase. Wants to know, is it possible to win with Connor McDavid?
Well, you can win. You can't win a cup, apparently.
Well, come on.
Yeah, this is another out of context thing. I have said so many times that he's the most talented player in the league.
Mm-hmm. You've also said that you can't win with him.
If I was going to start a team, I'd take Nathan McKinnon instead of Connor McDavid, and I still believe that. But I've said I don't think you can win with a team built the way Edmonton's team is built, with that much money into McDavid, Draisaitl, Darnell Nurse. They exceeded what I thought they would do this year. I still say they'd lose to Vancouver if Thatcher Demko's healthy in that series and Brock Besser doesn't get hurt in the middle of the series. And that was 2 rounds before the finals.
Yeah,
Vancouver had them. But to their credit, I was shocked they beat Dallas the way they did. They played better than I thought I ever would have imagined. But I still don't think that if I was building a team, that's not how I'd build my roster.
Right. Lisa on our trip, who's a rabid Wild fan, apparently doesn't want to come up to the microphone, so she texted me her question. What should John Hines' number one priority be at the beginning of the season? To me, it's penalty kill. Like that, they've got to fix the penalty kill. It cannot be. We saw against Dallas in the playoffs, it basically lost them that series. And last year, I mean, it was bad from the start to finish, other than a little bump in December when Patrick Dwyer got there, but then it reverted to bad old habits like not getting saves and not getting clears and goals against. And they finished 30th in the league. And, you know, there have been many, many, many examples that you can win win a cup with a mediocre power play. But if you're a mediocre or worse penalty kill, it's just impossible.
Yeah, we looked at that a few years ago. I was surprised. I didn't really think about it until I can't remember which season it was going into the playoffs, but we looked at the previous champions, and a whole bunch of them had power plays that were in the bottom half of the NHL during the regular season, but only like 2 had a penalty kill that was in the bottom half. It was amazing to me how much more important it was. Why wouldn't you come up here and ask the question?
She's
shy. That was way better than the other questions we've had.
Yeah, exactly. So Kelly, whose son is in the media business,
and a Johnny. So that's one. We've really had an increase in the Johnny Benny influence on this trip. We've got a young Benny with us on the trip. We've got a Johnny father with us on the trip. Yep. The aforementioned Simon and Patty, Johnny Benny couple. That's been a great addition.
And my son Brandon's doing a lot of high school games for MN Hockey TV, and he's the one who really wants to get a little deeper into that question before the last. You guys talked about this a little bit from a team moves perspective. Do you guys think the team's making the right kind of moves to keep the young guys like Kaprizov around when they get to free agency? Or are they going to see that management and ownership is just building another 8th or 9th place team, and why do I stick around for that? I want to build a team that can win the cup.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doubtful. I'll be honest, because there's 32 great opportunities in the NHL. Obviously, some can afford them, some can't. And he's got lots of friends, and there's lots of enticing things. And he wants I think the one thing that Anthony and I can both agree on is that Kirill Kaprizov wants to win. That guy is driven by winning, not his individual statistics. It's actually what really impresses me the most about him is that he just wants to win. And the Wild he loves Minnesota. He loves living here. He loves the organization. But I'm telling you, like, they have to show him a future. And when Craig Leopold says at the beginning of last season that it's constantly on their mind and they are genuinely worried about it, I might be taking him a little out of context, but it is a big thing that they talk about all the time in the front office. They better hope they have a good year this year, because I'm telling you, next year, like, when it comes to free agency, like, when they get to July 1 and have the ability to re-sign him, extend him, they got to know that he's willing then. Or they're going to have to look to move him, because they cannot have another Marian Gaborik situation. That was a disaster for this organization. I covered that thing.
And he's such a different player than Kirill Kaprizov.
But
he
no,
was
my point
not
is
a guy that was wired to win.
My point is that you cannot lose that guy for nothing.
Yeah, but Marian Gaborik was a guy that he wanted to play. He was more about Marian Gaborik than about winning.
Right.
And that's a little bit of an oversimplification. Kirill Kaprizov he's such a different person.
The context
player.
of what I'm saying is losing the guy for nothing. If all of a sudden they get any signs next summer that he is going to play hardball and is not completely invested in staying here, they're going to have to start making a decision, because then you will have a ton of money to play with. But you know, that is
well, obviously
going to need to start to come into fruition
next
next
summer.
summer.
He might not sign. They're not. I don't think they will let that happen. Right. But I think it's way early to be worried about that. And actually, even the way that he asked the question, like, do young players have to see this? Well, all the other young players have locked in. I mean, Matt Boldy locked in for the future. We're talking about one guy, and that guy's an important guy. But I think everybody else sees, like, hey, they love it here. They love the path of the organization. All the other guys have Brock Faber's about to. I mean, these are their young stars. They're all, you think if they go to Marco Rossi tomorrow, he's going to say, I don't think the plan is in place here to win. I mean, they're all.
I think that's different. I think then that's different than a 28-year-old, 27-year-old.
No, but I'm saying
star.
all the other young players are locking in.
Right.
We're talking about one guy
locking in
yes.
until they're Kaprizov's age. Kaprizov, and first of all, the other guys that are locking in are the Folignos and Hartmans, who are obviously going to take midterm deals.
No, I'm talking about the young players.
But the young guys are in, again, different. I mean, when you're signing Boldy and Faber at 21 years old for 7-8 years, that's very different than Kirill Kaprizov at 27. He's in a different place in his career.
They have to sign him.
Right.
They have to, or else all of the plan that they've got in place doesn't work if Kirill Kaprizov's not a part of it. I'm just saying, I think right now I think it's premature to say like, oh, they have to show him something. I think when you talk to him, he's a wild guy right now.
Yeah.
And that could change. That could change if all of a sudden things get derailed. But I don't think right now it's time for fans to worry that like Kaprizov's on the verge.
Well, and I'm telling you, like because it's a year out, I don't think it's too premature. I think this is when the Wild are saying that this is constantly on their mind. I mean, Bill Guerin talks about it. Craig Leopold talks about it. I think it's something that we have to.
They're saying like, look, we believe like if we don't look like we're going to win, that would be a problem. But I think they all believe they're going to look like they're going to win.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's a big year for the organization. Any other questions, or we go to Twitter questions? Here we go. Yeah. Kevin.
I hate to add to the doubting Thomases here, but one of the things that the Wild need to do, or was talked about that they need to do, is to get bigger on defense. Zeev, great draft pick, he's highly rated, 6 foot, right? Mm-hmm. Brock Faber, 6'1" ish. How are they going to get bigger on defense when they get lambasted for drafting a bigger guy, as a center, and Strammel that's had a bad year or two, and so we're seeing these things that they need to change, but they're not.
I'm not worried about Faber's size.
Yeah, he's a linebacker on skates, but it is something that's going to have to evolve in his game. And
and I think that's why we just saw the Jake Middleton extension, is because he brings to the table something that the rest of their defensive core doesn't. The Boehm addition is another great skating, puck-moving defenseman, but he's not a big, heavy, physical guy. I think that's why they extended Middleton the way they did. But I don't think they're at all worried about Faber's physicality or ability to play a heavier game defensively. You can win. You don't have to have the big, huge defenseman. There are a lot of teams who have won with puck movers too.
And not to bring up other things here, but I'm not convinced that like even Spurgeon and Brodin are here for the extent of their times. I mean, they're both their deals now go to modified no trades. I do think it is one area that Bill Guerin is concerned about is just their lack of physicality at times on the back end. And so there are ways to get flexible if for some reason it's not working. They have Damon Hunt, who's not exactly a physical guy, but he brings size and things like that. But that is, I mean, to Anthony's point on Middleton, that's why they brought him in. I mean, they have a lot of regard for Middleton, especially if they can get Spurgeon back, because Jake Middleton with Jared Spurgeon is very different than Jake Middleton with everybody else on the team. It just seems like analytically, it's pretty remarkable, actually, Anthony. Like,
yeah. I mean, he looks like, I think, to me, he's up a pair when he plays with Jared Spurgeon.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, you want me to go to Twitter questions? We got more here.
Yeah, I don't know why Brian's been unwilling to come up and ask a question.
I know why.
Mark will.
I know why. Huh? No, you can go.
So I used to be on Team Billy G until last summer, and I felt like the deals he did with Hartman, Foligno, and then this year with Middleton, he just keeps on adding on term for these aging guys that are 30, 40-point producers. And I don't understand why he's not willing to let these guys play up until their final year of their contract and see what they do. And in February, if they're having a good year, then you extend them. It seems like he's doing it like a year ahead before he really needs to. And he set up the goalie situation the way it is. and Wallstead, they're betting that he's going to be the guy, but bringing Fleury back for another year when he was middling last year, Gus was middling last year, to set up the team where you don't have a strong goalie. You've got all these third and fourth line guys that, in my opinion, he's put too much term. It's hard to see these young guys coming in and having a spot. And that's where I've got a concern with his strategy going forward.
Yeah, and we've talked about this a lot. The guys that are coming up, the prospects are coming up, aren't third and fourth line guys. So they're different. Ogren, Urov, they're not third and fourth line guys anyway. So those guys are going to fill different spots in the lineup. None of these guys are blocking spots for those guys. And frankly, if they can't outplay Ryan Hartman in a top six role, then they shouldn't be in the top six anyway. And, I think the Gus thing was a little bit, I thought maybe it was buying too much into one half of one season where they locked him up. I would have wanted to see a little bit more before I committed to him. But the Fleury thing now was as much an influence thing. We want to have this veteran guy around to influence a young goaltender, and not that his.
But that young goaltender might not even be here.
But I'm saying, that to me is more the Gus decision, not the Fleury decision. To add Fleury here for one more year, that he needs to play better than he did last year. But I thought Gus. I would have waited a little while on Gus just to see if it was legit, and it might be. We might see Gus all of a sudden revert back to the Gus of 2 years ago, and it might end up being one of the better goaltending contracts in the league, because if he plays like he did down the stretch that year, he's a bargain. Yeah, but we got to see it.
The one thing, and I'm conflicted on it because I love all these guys that he's extended, but the one thing is Foligno, Middleton, and Hartman all got extensions after bad years, and that's just a fact. And Foligno is a guy that you had to almost extend him then, because there'd be 25 teams lining up to sign him this summer. Trust me. Maybe not after he had another abdominal issue, but he would get that money and more probably with a lot of teams. Middleton, I don't understand what the rush was. I would want to see him bounce back, play well with Spurgeon. Is he really going to get more money next summer if he has a good year? He loves Minnesota. He'd stay. That one, I just think he falls in love with his guys too easily. I really do. I mean, you have to make hard decisions as a GM. You think that Vegas didn't want to keep Jonathan Marchessault, or Tampa want to keep Steven Stamkos. They insulted Steven Stamkos with their offers. I mean, offering him 8 years at $2 million or $3 million a year. It was ridiculous what they offered him. But it was all designed because they wanted to change it up and say, you know what, we've had our time, incredible career by Steven Stamkos, but we want to sign Jake Gensel. And so I just think that sometimes as a GM, you gotta move on, and I don't know, hopefully it works out, but I do think that some of the decisions the last couple of years have just been peculiar, and and when you do one after the other, it does take your flexibility away next summer, and I guess that's my biggest thing is I feel as a writer I've been setting up fans for 4 years of what's going to come next summer, and I don't see the ability for that to come now next summer. I just don't. It doesn't take much with a calculator to figure it out. To your point before, a lot of it's because they hit on Faber and he turned out to be a heck of a defenseman. They thought they were going to have $8 million.
They thought they were going to have $8 million more to spend, and if you've got the $8 million into him because of what he turned out to be, that's not a bad thing.
But there's another one. Maybe if they start playing hardball this summer, it's another one. You can wait. Let's see if he does it again. It's not going to get way, way more expensive. He's only Group 2 next summer, so it's not like you have to get him done now and he's going to be an unrestricted free agent. Maybe, and we'll see. I mean, right now, at least before I left for this trip, talking to both sides of the equation here, it was really both sides had no idea if it was going to get done. They had their preliminary talk in Vegas during the draft, and they're not positive at all yet where it's going to go. Dan asks on Twitter, Russo was at development camp and was impressed with Ryder Ritchie. Good size, skated well, and good hands. Haven't heard you talk much about him. Your thoughts? I thought he looked great there. Bigger than I thought he was. A lot of skill, and I think another one where like Zeev Buyam, it could be a real, and Kivirarju, who I wrote about the other day as well, could be a real steal.
They might have gotten 3 guys with
Yeah.
first-round talent just because of injury where they slipped a little bit. And I remember just reading about Richie the previous year during the early scouting combine ratings for him, and his name being listed among the first-round picks.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know a lot of times people are, I was shocked he was available at this time in the draft. But I think with those guys, they both were expected to be potential first-round picks a year earlier in their career. I just thought we talked about this last week a little bit, the way Boyum and Height stood out during that camp was significant.
Yep, couple more minutes left in the show, so your last chance if you want to come up and ask a question. Come on up. Alex goes, with all the turnover down in the AHL, do you think we are aiming for a Calder Cup win down in Iowa? I think they just want to get out of the cellar. But the hope is that all these people that down there is not only going to help Iowa and be much more competitive and help insulate the young guys, especially on the blue line, but also help Minnesota and have much better call-up options during the year.
And have a different variety of players down there.
Exactly. Rock NHL goes, do you see Urov being a center or a winger in the NHL? The Wild see him as a center. Stick on the ice guy. This is a good question. Is Rieger Lorenz a better prospect than most people are aware of? He looked great in the Frozen Four. I could tell you that the Wild front office, and especially Judd Brackett, thought he was exceptional in development camp. So that's good. We talked about the wine scene in Portugal. Let's see.
What's been your favorite port?
Port was not, as Miguel joked, Port was not really, I think, any of our cup of teas. Why do you think that is? I mean, obviously they love it here. Is it just too sweet?
It's too sweet for me, but I have a couple of the Douro Valley Reds that they age in port barrels, but then we also found out it's the same grape. It's just that it's not quite as sweet because they don't add the sugars to it.
Aaron wants to know your favorite Portuguese wine, red and white styles so far.
Well, Alvarinho is my favorite white, and you can't miss. They're all good. The reds are all blends, so it's hard you can't really assess them. But I've liked a lot of the more full-bodied red blends. The Touriga Nacional is, I think, the name of one of the more prevalent grapes here, and as long as that's kind of the majority of the grape, I like it.
And then somebody asked about the food. What's been your favorite food?
I've had a lot of cod.
Yeah. That's the other fascinating thing we learned we learned is that there's no cod in the Portuguese waters, yet it's the most cod consumption in the world.
I was amazed by that. Remember when we were in the village on the beach there where they had the fish and octopus and everything, that they salt it and dry it just so they can rehydrate it a few days later before they cook it. That was an interesting part of the story. But yeah, the cod's been great. The food's been good. I like the food here.
Yeah, it's been good. Except for one little restaurant in one city yesterday that put me out for the rest of the night. All right, awesome podcast. Last call for questions. No? You want to come up? I don't know if Brian can make it this far.
No. Plus, there's a low branch hanging over right there that would be a major concussion risk.
Brian, we wanted to talk to you about the conversation we were having with that woman on the river cruise. No. No.
Well, we've got a great crowd. This has been an unbelievable trip, and we're glad that all these Wild fans make their way over with us to Europe every summer. It's been a lot of fun, and looking forward to next year's trip already.
Yeah, we've already spitting around some ideas for next year's trip, so definitely pay attention to our social media for that. So really, really appreciate you all coming out. It's been a great trip so far, and we have a couple days left. So thanks to everybody. Thanks for joining us at the Aquarius Home Services Studio, which I guarantee is the first time that's ever been done from a topless pool in Lisbon. Thanks to Aquarius Home Services, our local authorized dealer for Connecticut water treatment systems, Royal Credit Union, Bosch Law Firm, Fellers Ranch, and Huxley Optical. Thanks, everybody.